This just reminded me of how we need to be intentional about the books that we put in children's hands. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the One More Book podcast channel. I am back with a book review. This is something that has really come to me very unexpectedly. This is Sulwe by Lupita Nyong'o and illustrated by Vashti Harrison. This book came to me very unexpectedly because I was randomly, let's just say I always do like this clear out of things that we don't need, especially when the year starts. I think most people do it, like we do like an unhauling of things. I asked my son, because my son has a lot of and there's things in his room, random things. So I asked him to clear out his room. And of course, I wanted to go through what he'd picked out to just make sure that he's not throwing anything that is important. And Thank you, God, that I went through, because this was one of the books that he was unhauling. I was like, you cannot unhaul books that I have bought. So I realized that they are actually books that are mine, children's books that belong to me. And especially, for example, this is one of them. Sulwe is very meaningful to me. And to be honest, I've never read this book. I got it as a gift from a friend. I think they also got it as a gift, and they couldn't read it because this is the Luo version. And some people cannot read Luo. I can read Luo. So she gifted it to me. And I didn't read it to my kids because they were old enough to read on their own, and they do not understand Luo. So like, this is actually my book. And then so today, life has just been like running around, and I haven't had time to like sit down and read. So I was like, before my day starts, let me sit down and read something small. And this was in my hands, and I thought, okay, let me read this. This is really beautiful. I never knew, and it just brought back to me why I think I never bought it in the first place. So this book, it unexpectedly took me back to my childhood. Growing up, I was born and raised in Kisumu, which is the third largest city in Kenya. It's on the lakeside, it's a lakeside city. And in my family, everyone was dark-skinned. Like, skin tone was never an issue. It is something that was never brought up. We never talked about it growing up because it was a non-issue for us. There was like no favoritism based on how we looked, because we all looked the same. If anything, praise or criticism was based on how we performed. Like, how well were you doing in school? Or how well were you behaving? Did you go to church? How hard were you working? Like, those were like how our value was measured, which is also wrong. It's very problematic, but that's a Pandora's box that I do not want to open here. Probably should open that with my therapist. Side tangent. So our value was just never tied to our appearance. We just needed to be clean. That was all. You just needed to be clean and presentable. Skin tone never came up at all. Never came up. And growing up, we all had short hair, like the girls. My mom insisted on us having short hair. And our ears, we could, like, I got my first ear piercing when I turned 18. So appearance was like never important. And then came my teenage years. So for a long time, I just thought that that was just how the world worked, you know, we were all the same. And then I became a teenager, I grew up, I went to high school, and I met other friends. I started to notice something very different outside of my home in these environments that I was in. I saw friends who were lighter skinned receive more attention, more praise, and even privileges. You know, like, I noticed like we would get in trouble, but my lighter skinned friends got off with like lighter punishments than I did. they were more validated, especially by men, because I am interested in men, or we were interested in men at that age, or let's just say boys, men. And you could sense like who got the first, like who was contacted first. Back then we used to receive like love letters, so they had more, kind of. They were described also, like in our society, they were described also as the most beautiful, or they were celebrated in songs. Like growing up, the songs we had, we'll talk about, the light-skinned girl. We call it Lando in Luo. So like Nyakoma Lando, the girl who is light-skinned. Or even in media, I would see like TV presenters were mostly light-skinned. And even just everyday conversations, that's when I came to know about the light-skin privileges that some people had. And slowly I began to understand colorism. And reading Sulwe has really, I would say, like, it has helped me put that childhood memory into this realization, because it shows how early these messages start and how deeply they can shape a child's sense of self. Like, these conversations should start in the house when the child is still, like when you're still really young. Reading this reminded me that colorism isn't always taught directly. It's absorbed through what we see being celebrated out there, and who is left questioning their worth when we go outside of our safe spaces. Like, if you don't experience colorism at home, when you go outside, that's when you actually realize, and the world kind of teaches you wrongly, and of course it leaves you questioning, like, your worth and your value based on what the color of your skin is. And I'm very sad when, like, I still see, especially now, like on social media, it's still something that like people are really still grappling with, and especially when we see capitalism getting involved into it. You see like creams being sold, you see like influencers selling these products, or introducing these products that they claim can help fight hyperpigmentation, and they're not like dermatologists or doctors, and you just don't know how these creams will affect you. It's when people talk about having, like your skin should be the same I don't know, it just, for me, it just doesn't work like that. And I think we really, really need to have these conversations. And I'm so glad that books like Sulwe exist, and that's why they matter, because children deserve stories that affirm them before the world teaches them to doubt themselves. They deserve to see beauty reflected in skin that looks like theirs, and they deserve language to understand that the problem was never them. It's never been them. It is this system that they are born into. I would say that reading Sulwe right now, it didn't feel like I was reading a children's book. It just felt like it was this reminder of why representation, especially in children's literature, is not an option. It's absolutely necessary. And I'm so happy that I've been reminded of how we need to be intentional about the books that we put in children's hands, and how early conversations on colorism, how early these conversations should start, and these messages should start, because the earlier the better, especially when it comes to this. I will share some other books that I've come across that also talk about this. I will share the titles and the authors so you can have a look at them, and you can also recommend any book that you know, especially children's book, that talks about colorism, one that maybe you've read or you've seen recommended. Please, let's just start a list so that anyone who is looking for such books can always reach for them. But of course, Sulwe, I would definitely recommend this. Even if you're an adult, I think I enjoy reading children's books, and I think there's an author, she's also a book content creator, I think she's called Claire, and she usually does really amazing book recommendations, especially for children. And she kind of reminded me that reading children's books, adults should read children's books. So if you're like in a reading slump, or you don't know, you're too busy, you feel like I cannot invest, I just don't have the time to read a bigger book, then grab a children's books. You'll absolutely enjoy it. And it will just bring up memories like it did to me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will leave you with 2 other videos that you can check out. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and see you in the next video. Bye.